If you've been looking for videos about stacking and what's going on with gold and silver prices over the last 24 hours, I'm sure you've been inundated with the same doom and gloom and fear thumbnails that I've seen. My focus is on stacking, but what I don't need is gold and silver stacking channels hyperventilating over this issue with Silicon Valley Bank, only to say what they say at the end of every video. This is why you need gold. This is why you need to be stacking. Just click on my affiliate link. I'm gonna say this right now so I can just tick those of you off before the first 30 seconds is up. Gold and silver are not always the solution. This low-level thinking makes me want to put a blindfold on and run across a NASCAR track during a race. Okay, that might have been a little dramatic, but you get my point. It's almost like teaching Sunday school to kindergartners and the answer to every question is, Jesus? It's like, thanks, little Timmy, but Jesus can't be the answer to everything. Well, wait, you know what I mean. You just can't respond to everything by saying, buy more gold and silver or gold and silver are the answer. So I will be clear, gold and silver are not the answer, the correct response, or the solution to the Silicon Valley Bank fiasco. It's much more and deeper than that. Neither is pulling all your money out of the banks, which would actually contribute to more of the bank run sentiment, only create more chaos, and is actually a major part of why SVB failed. And finally, buying more gold and silver aren't necessarily the solution, though they are likely to benefit in the short term. Just like in grade school math, in order to find out the solution, you have to understand the problem. There are plenty of videos that have gone into great details about SVB, so let me just give you a Cliff Notes version of it. The Fed has raised rates like crazy very quickly, and along with QT, they've sucked a ton of liquidity out of the system. Banks traditionally buy bonds as a way to balance cash deposits, and by law, they are allowed to have less than 10% of their bank deposits in cash. So as long as a bunch of people don't want their cash at the same time, the system functions. SVB is heavily involved in the tech world, especially startups and venture capitalists. This is important because as liquidity dried up, these companies need more and more of their money to try to keep their company going. In fact, 88% of Forbes' 2022 next billion-dollar startups are clients of SVB. Over 50% of all U.S. venture capitalists backed by tech and life science are clients of SVB. 44% of U.S. venture capitalists backed companies with an IPO in 2022 were clients of SVB. So again, as they needed more cash, they had to go back to the bank. So essentially, SVB needed its own liquidity injection. So they had to start prematurely selling bonds because they needed cash, which resulted in a $1.8 billion loss that they had to book immediately. So they decided to also sell some shares of stock as a way to raise some cash, and then all of a sudden everyone panicked. Once people started panicking, that led to more and more, and when it was all said and done Thursday, by the end of the day, customers have withdrawn a staggering $42 billion in deposits, which left SVB with a negative cash balance of $958 million. FDIC came in on Friday, took over, but it's also important to note that only 2.7% of their accounts fall under the FDIC limit. So what that tells me is if SVB doesn't have enough assets, someone's gonna be left holding the bag. And by holding the bag, I mean ain't gonna get their money back. It's also very important to note that from what we know right now, SVB was solvent and was not in financial trouble per se. It was the act of everyone trying to pull out their money at the same time that created this issue. We could have the same thing happen today if we all got together and said, let's all pull all our money out of bank X, Y, and Z. This is due to, again, to the regulations that banks are only required to carry a small percentage of the deposits in cash. Forgive me, but I'm gonna ignore all the typical things that you likely hear on YouTube about whether or not banks are safe, go close your bank accounts, take your cash out, banks are collapsing, and all the other clickbait fear peddling, because that ain't what's important right now. That may become part of the narrative or the future story, but right now, we have a more pressing issue that needs to be addressed for your own personal good. While SVB is getting all the attention and people are using this as a I told you so moment, I had the misfortune and in some ways fortune of seeing the real contagion and tragedy of the situation. A friend reached out yesterday distressed, not because she banked with SVB, but because the startup she works for did. And here's the real tragedy, and here's where it hits home. Her company that was scheduled to go public now is in complete turmoil. She didn't get paid, doesn't know when or if she will get paid, and as a result, her whole life is in turmoil, all because of the bank run on SVB. The true impact of SVB is not known and may not be known for a while, But what I want you to focus on are the reverberation and the spillover effects from this incident. The reverberation effect is about how an event or action continues to be felt over time. The easiest way to think about this is sound bounces around the room, while spillover effect refers to a situation in which an event or action in one area has unintended or negative consequences in another area. Carrying this analogy a little further, right now everyone is focused on the sound or noise coming from SVB and the direct impact, which is an issue. But the reverberation effect of SVB is having a direct spillover effect in my friend's life, as she may or may not get paid, have a job, be able to pay her mortgage, continue to employ her nanny, and all the things she does to take care of herself and her family, including spending money throughout the economy. So let me give you another spillover effect of a much broader and larger scale. It was reported that 26% of Netflix's free cash was held by SVB. So how will that reverberate throughout Netflix, its employees, and interconnected companies? Will that also lead to job losses, contracts with other companies being cut, wages being frozen? Quickly, you can see how this contagion can spread very quickly. And while everyone is focused on SVB and their solvency for good reason, my focus right now is on you and how do we protect you. The sad reality is that this young lady did nothing wrong. Regardless, she still doesn't have enough money to take care of her essentials. I don't mean this in a cruel way, and I did receive permission to discuss this, but if we don't learn this lesson from her, you will have to learn this lesson the hard way. So here's some key takeaways and questions and things I want you to consider in hopes of not having to learn this lesson the hard way. Emergency fund. I don't know how many times I've said this and other creators have said this, but please have an emergency fund. If you don't have at least 3 months, should you really be going that hard stacking right now? Maybe you can do half and half. Stack half as much and use the other half to build that emergency fund. Your cash or your oh crap fund. Do you have extra cash on hand? Besides your emergency fund, do you have some oh crap money? Some of the ATMs went down money. Some of the banks are closed money. Some illiquidity of others, so they have to sell for super cheap money. And I don't mean this in a cold-hearted way, but as these things continue to happen in our economy, they're going to present a lot of buying opportunities for us. And I don't mean that in a terrible way, but it's just the reality. I have told you in the past that I've purchased numerous gold coins at spot price because of someone else's illiquidity. There will be opportunities like that, and that's why you need this oh crap money as well. Remember, cash is king and it always spends. And under normal circumstances, I would keep my emergency fund in the bank and my oh crap fund at home. I'm not doing that right now. You have to decide what's best for you. Bank walk, not run. Part of the challenge with SVB is that the system basically fed on itself. If people didn't panic and start pulling out extra money, their problem would not have escalated as far and as quickly as it did. And we might not even be discussing them right now. At the same time, it would be hard for me to not pull my millions out of the bank if I felt like my bank was in trouble. We don't need to cause hysteria, but it is a good idea, at least right now, to limit some of your third-party risk. So maybe every time you swipe your card, you pull a little extra cash out. It protects you and allows you to continue to build that old crap fund. Debt. Debt's always a problem, but when you lose your job or in a financial crisis, debt is like a noose around your neck when you're unemployed. So cut the rope, cut the habit of debt. If nothing else, start cutting at the rope. I don't care if you have to use a butter knife, a Swiss Army knife, or that raggedy knife on the end of your fingernail file clippers. Doesn't matter. Start going at it. Employability and retainability. If you had to get a new job, how quickly could you replace your salary? Have a plan now. Update your resume now. Build a LinkedIn profile now. Prepare today just in case. In terms of retainability, if your employer had to trim 50% of his workforce, where would you land? If you don't like that answer, I'd start approaching my 9 to 5 very differently immediately. Side hustle. It's always good to have a side hustle for extra cash, but you never know, your side hustle could ultimately become your main hustle. So prepare yourself. If you don't have one, find one. In times of crises, the ability to make extra money any way you can will make all the difference in the world. Budget. We've discussed this a ton of times, so I'm going to say it this way. It's better to tighten your own belt rather than have life or someone else tighten your belt for you. But Doc, this is why we have gold and silver. Why are you making such a big issue out of this? Yes, our metals are our ultimate insurance policy, and like most insurance, we hope that we never need it or that we never have to use it. SVB is a reminder that we need to have a strong financial foundation in addition to your stack. We didn't work this hard to position ourselves for this bull market to be forced to sell because you didn't plan and prepare in advance. I don't believe SVP is the beginning of the end, though we may look back and say that they were the first shoe to drop. What's important is that we walk away with the interconnectedness of things financially and how something unrelated to you or my friend can easily spill over into your life, which is why we have to be prepared. Gold and silver are our ultimate life raft, our ultimate insurance policy that we hope we never have to use. In the comment section, what are some of the key takeaways from the SVB situation? What are some other things that we can do to prepare? Or simply put an A+ in the grade book or the comment section to make sure you get credit for being an A+ student. Always stack smarter, never stop learning.